Thank you, Tom. I hope you enjoyed that with the balloons and the stories, because distractions are not a good thing. Now I'd like to introduce our third speaker. He is my immediate past district director and my wonderful husband, Mr. Josué Batista. He's going to talk to you, as I pointed out a little earlier in my presentation, about storytelling and how it's engaging and innovative. So let's welcome Mr. Josué R. Batista.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good morning. It is very, very interesting and very important for me to be here because I have a very, very important message for you. In case you haven't noticed, a lot of things are changing out there. In fact, I am convinced, based on the work that I do on a daily basis, that we are moving rapidly into a direction that is going to really make relevant, extremely relevant, your capacity to communicate effectively. In case you haven't noticed, hard book sales are in decline. In fact, over the last 3 years, an average of 25% decline in sales. I'm sure that you as students have bought hardbound books, but many of them are now being made available online. But there is something even more interesting about this trend. How many of you have heard about a company called Audible? Okay, you know what that company does, right? They have books that you can listen to. In fact, it's actually an Amazon company. And over the last 3 to 4 years, they have increased their Audible members about 40% average every single year. Isn't that remarkable? 40% in average over the last 3 or 4 years. That is a trend to pay attention to, right? Also, some of you have perhaps tried some of the latest assistants that companies like Amazon, Google, Apple have put out, right? How many of you have an iPhone, for example? How many of you lift your hand up if you have used Siri? Okay, it's getting better, right? In fact, even understands me, which I have an accent, and is able to understand me. You know why? Because now they are using artificial intelligence behind the scenes. It's not just the translation of those waves into matching something that looks like that. They're using actually machine learning and neural networks to make this possible. So something is changing recently, and it's going to accelerate tremendously. One more piece of evidence. The human voice. I was looking at an article a few weeks ago at the MIT Sloan Business School review that they have online. By the way, it's free. You can download 3 articles every month for free. And they were talking about the human voice. And the interesting part was, in their opinion, is the most important technology of the year. So each one of us have a voice, right? The interaction that we're having with equipments and systems is not anymore texting or writing an inquiry. It's actually what is speaking to the device in some cases. It's not reading the response. It's actually listening to it. We're listening to more audiobooks. There's even the proposition that the human voice is the next or the best app of the year. So why is that? Well, one thing that is very interesting is as humans, we like speech. In particular, we like storytelling. Each time that we hear this, once upon a time, our ears perk up and our brain actually start paying more attention. I know this number may not mean that much to you, 150,000, But 150,000 is the number of years that, according to Dr. John Bergwarder, has been the time that humans have been speaking. Before that, perhaps was not really speaking, was perhaps grunts. But 150,000 years. However, we have been talking all that time. If we have to comprise the history of mankind, speaking history in 24 hours, we have been writing only at 11:07 p.m., meaning that we have been writing just for a small space of time in comparison with all the time that we have been talking. So humans, we are wired for stories. We're wired for speeches, and that is what makes possible for each one of you to make your voice count. It's the best app that you already have. And that is why, well, the reason for that is there are several things that happen when you are listening to a story. You have neural coupling. It means that in some cases you are not necessarily, when you listen to a good story, you're actually participating with the person that is telling you the story. There is also dopamine, which makes you feel good. It's actually pleasant to listen to a good story. In addition to that, there is cortex activity in the speaking section of the brain. And other sensorial areas of the brain also are activated. And it gets better. If you do research, they have done MRIs, real-time MRIs of a group of people while they're listening to a story. And what they have found is that all of them are in sync with this story. The parts of the brain is kind of mirroring. They mirror each other while that story is being told. Fascinating to me, because you as business majors and some of you are in marketing, you need to take that into account. It's very important, the fact that storytelling can not only make a difference in your careers, but also accelerate and actually align your career what is coming in the future. Any coffee lovers here? Coffee? One time someone asked me, what is the best cup of coffee that you ever had? And I think they were asking the question because I am from Venezuela. And Venezuela is not known for good coffee, but there is a place in Market Square, downtown, called Nicholas Coffee, and you can find actually Venezuelan coffee there. It's very good, by the way. So I thought for a moment about that question. What's the best coffee I ever had? And I have to come to the conclusion that the best coffee I ever had was at home. I was about 11 years old, and my grandmother was roasting coffee in the backyard. That was an experience that was unique and very amazing because you don't see that often, but she did. She roasted the coffee, and she added honey, and she added some raw sugar, and it was delicious. The smell was fantastic. And then I would help her grind that. The sound, the smell, all those grains coming and being grounded, and then brewing that coffee, that was fantastic. That was the best. That is a story, right? I could have told you just that Venezuelan coffee was the best, but I actually added an experience from my own. That is storytelling. Now, how many of you know this gentleman here? Raise your hand. Anyone knows who he is? I know you know, of course, but anyone else? Do you see the background? What is there? Can you take a hint? Yes. Right. It's the CEO, actually. Now he's the chairman of CEO. He left the position, but now he's the chairman. His name is Howard Schultz. And he did something remarkable. Howard Schultz transformed something as mundane as drinking coffee into an experience. When you go to a Starbucks, I presume you have one here in campus. Do you have a Starbucks here? It's an experience. You are just going for the coffee, but you also get the Wi-Fi, you see your friends, you pick something that you like. How many of you have a Starbucks names? Some people do. So they don't like to give their real name, they use other names in other places, especially in large cities. But anyway, he made possible to take something, perhaps a commodity, which was coffee, it still is, it's a commodity, into an experience. And that is the key. Your voice, your experiences, Your stories have power. And that is very important, very remarkable. Basically, through innovation, he used clever innovation to ensure that the customer experience was much better than any other place for getting coffee. And that created the most loyal customer engagement in history. I will say that it's as far as people who like Apple products. They're very dedicated to a Starbucks. I work downtown Pittsburgh, and I park on the O'Reilly Theater parking garage, and I have to walk 2 blocks to get to my building. And in one corner, on 6th Street and Penn, there is a Starbucks there. And then on the other corner, there is, I think it's called a Bean Joe or something like that, in that corner. Well, when I walk by, I can almost swear that they have something, a technology that actually emits or pulls out in the street the smell of coffee. Because I don't smell that on the other corner. But as I pass by, I smell the coffee. And I think that is, I meant to research on that. Please remind me, doctor, to research on that. They may have a technology on that or a patent. So he had to use clever innovation, enhance the customer experience to create engagement. You can do the same. You can do the same. I'm convinced you can do that. So here are some quick facts about this. The average person reads around 150 or it gets bombarded with 100,000 plus words every day. So why not to keep it short, right? 92% of consumers, they want brands that have a story behind them, have experience and engagement in it. So why not to deliver content that is relatable? And finally, we like pictures, right? Our brain processes things better when there are pictures in it. In fact, we are 60 times faster to process images than actually speech. So why not to include that in your presentations, in your communications, in your resumes, in your LinkedIn page, whatever means you have to get your voice out? Why not to use those facts? Finally, I'd like to say that it's all about the experience. When it comes to your voice, your stories, the things that you can make a difference in your life, in and out college, is about the experience. And Toastmasters offers you that. There is a communication track, and there is a leadership track. And in each one of those, when you join Toastmasters for the first time, you get 2 manuals. One manual is the competent communication, and the other manual is the competent leadership. And each one of those projects that you work on prepare you to make your voice count, to make your voice even more powerful. So the next time you have a cup of coffee, Starbucks, remember Mr. Schultz. He is an innovator. He's making sure that the organization keeps the customer engaged. Also remember Toastmasters, because it is an opportunity for you to make your voice count. Madam District Director.